the destruction isn't linked to man's behaviour.
Today's science makes us look again at these legends.
There are other cases, like tsunami. A tsunami is a phenomenon where a natural dam breaks and water is released, causing huge floods across the earth with very significant volumes of water. It is very likely that many ancient people witnessed this phenomenon and then told stories about it and called it the flood.
Non, le déluge.
The last major climate catastrophe happened 10 to 12,000 years ago. Climates across the globe changed radically. This climate catastrophe wiped out entire species, like the woolly mammoth and the saber-toothed tiger, and possibly many more.
There are many species that probably disappear over their death. We can't answer the question how many because the research, the studies haven't been done. We'll answer that question when we get the human and financial means to answer it.
So species disappeared. Could the Giza clock refer to this catastrophe in some way? If the line that straddles the globe through all the ancient sites was an equator, its north pole would be here. This point is precisely located at the Earth's magnetic pole, which is different from our north pole.
The magnetic pole isn't a steady point on the surface of our planet. It moves at about 25 miles a year. Today, thanks to modern technology, we know that this oscillation is increasing. This is very disturbing.
Could the line of the ancient sites be positioned to draw our attention to the magnetic pole? The magnetic pole is not stable. It's reversed itself many times.
We've recorded about 100 pole inversions.
No one knows why, but scientists think it may be linked to the sun.
On the consequences of the magnetic pole, I think that today we would need tens of hundreds of researchers to gather around and brainstorm about this kind of research to try to understand the direct and indirect consequences of this magnetic pole inversion.
Our climate is changing. The movement of our magnetic pole is accelerating. We cannot know what the consequences could be. Which protects us against the radiation from space. If it disappeared, our planet would be burned. Destruction by fire. At the beginning of our civilization, much was kept secret by the priests. Maybe they were the guardians of some ancient knowledge in a world recovering from a climate catastrophe. Maybe they had been trusted to pass the message on to future generations. Maybe these astonishing buildings were constructed to warn us against a terrible cycle of destruction. An event that eradicated thousands of years ago, a sophisticated civilization lived on our planet. A civilization so generous they encoded messages across the earth to warn us in the far, far future of a potential threat. This is a message from the past that we should surely take seriously. The climate change that scientists see in our world today could be the first signs of the catastrophe our ancient ancestors were warning us about. Our time may be running out. The answer to these ancient mysteries are strange and difficult to fathom. Many scientists and archaeologists will dismiss them. But
aren't crickets nocturnal? Because in the background that's a cricket. So this is midnight on February the 22nd, 2012. Just taping the sound of the cicadas in the tree. There is one cricket in the background, but I'm thinking
the Great Pyramid of Giza has a message for us all.
just another example of the blooming plants in the middle of our winter. These are mini agapanthus in full bloom, and they're everywhere. And today is July the 15th. There's a lot of growth in our gardens in the southern hemisphere over winter, and this is the first time I've ever noticed it. It's a trend. It's occurring in more and more areas, and more species are showing alternative patterns than they would normally display. April the 6th, beautiful autumn day, no leaf drop yet. These are oak trees. They're showing signs of turning brown, but we're 6 weeks into autumn. I remember last year we saw leaf drop in February. I videoed it because I found it so unusual. Yet this year we've had a particularly hot, dry summer, so in theory we should notice leaf deterioration at a much earlier rate, but that's just not the case. Botanical trees that are producing these bizarre flower pods that have not come to quite fruition. They managed to get to a certain point, and then the little red stamens turned kind of a dusty sandy orange, and they just fell out of the seed pods, and they're littering the streets of Auckland. Every single pahutakawa has got this strange botanical change attached to it. No one seems to particularly notice. The streets are just full of these little tiny brown orangey stamens that just dropped out of the flowers because they couldn't come to fruition because they've all just flowered in February. But now we've got tips of new growth on them as well. New growth on these pseudopanaxes here. We're coming into winter. There are some big botanical changes taking place globally. What's causing it? That's what we have to be asking. You know, beautiful new luscious growth on these pahutakawa trees. Two weeks out of winter. This is what we would get in spring or early summer.
The Great Pyramid of Giza has a message for us all.